So the Titans beat the Dolphins, the Giants beat the Packers, the Cowboys beat the Eagles, and the Vikings scored 3 points in the game. Just 3, that was it. And still won it to 0. Unbelievable. Go home, NFL. You're clearly pissed. This is utter punts. What am I working with? Dan, you have to take a finger.
I feel for you all.
You can do that, you'll only lose by 20.
Welcome along, you utter punts. This is the NFL podcast made for NFL fans in the UK. After a weekend of utterly mad results, this is a polite reminder we'll be the only pundits in the Western Hemisphere to say the Titans would win.
It's incredibly boring.
How is that boring?
It's not carry on.
Shut up, you. If anybody mentions Taylor Swift, it's a straight red card and a 2-pod ban.
We got everything right last week. Yeah, cruised it last week.
Pretty sure I only got one wrong.
Professional, one wrong.
Unbelievable. I tell you what, it's Harry. Welcome along, you utter punts. This is the NFL podcast made for NFL fans in the UK in association with endzonekit.co.uk and Beer Keller. With me in Manchester this week, he's our Rain Man of the NFL. Although I've never really found out if he refuses to fly, if he's got to be in bed by exactly 11 o'clock every night, or if he watches reruns of The People's Court on TV. I do know he's exactly the kind of dude that could walk out of Caesar's Palace 86 grand richer to repay loans on his brother's Lamborghinis. It's Ravens fans. Dan Horton. Hello, mate. How are you?
He drives a Porsche.
Yeah. Really? Well, no. You have to pay the loan off on that. In Birmingham, it's Vikings fan Dave Keane. I tried to come up with a famous redhead to base his intro on, but I stopped when I got to Ron Weasley. In theory, he might requisition a broomstick and fly to Manchester to throw a bludger at my head from point blank range. If you get it, great. If you don't, I don't care. You all right, Dave?
I'm good, mate. One of his brothers is a Blues fan. The other is a Villa fan. I despise them all. It's easier to just take any kind of judgment out of the equation and go down the route of saying, right, the Weasley twins who were cast in the film from Sutton Coldfield are wrong-uns.
Okay. Great way to start the podcast. On the way, a look at the stories that caught our eye in the NFL this week, a full look ahead to the weekend's games, and there's a lot of them. Some fantasy advice too. This is Utter Punts. Yes, hello, welcome along. We are in Manchester, Dave is in Birmingham. There's loads to talk about this week, and Dave, I think we always sort of have a little WhatsApp group during the week about what we're going to be talking about, and you just sent a message through that said Monday night upset, and I think it's probably a really good place to start, isn't it? Because it was completely nuts.
Wow, I mean, the Giants won.
Very predictable, I thought.
That shouldn't happen, should it, Dan? The Giants
that,
winning. The
No.
Giants shouldn't win.
And
It's not a
especially
right thing
3
to
in a
have.
row, that's even weirder.
And then the Packers lost, which, you know, really? I thought they were about to win the division. Everyone was saying so. I think I said so. So, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where the Giants turned up, the Titans turned up as well against the Dolphins. There's been so many upsets this weekend. Like, Dan, you must be looking like a genius, mate. Me and Liam looking like morons for having gone with a route that we should have gone with. But, yeah, happy days, mate. Happy days. Congratulations. And, yeah, more upsets, please. Especially the ones with benefit
Which
of the
bit
Vikings.
did you get right? The Giants bit?
Both of them.
You got both?
So the Titans and the Giants.
Yeah.
Hang on, no, Dave said the Titans as well, though, didn't he?
I said they had a chance.
Yeah.
I didn't do what Dan did, which was to declare an open preference for both of the massive underdogs. So credit to you, mate. Impressive, very impressive indeed.
Did it reflect in your winnings this weekend as well?
Yeah, did we? Yeah. Yeah. Because the ACCA came in as well, of course.
So the ACCA that we came up with at the end of the pod came in, and your personal bets came in.
Yeah.
Did you walk out of Caesar's Palace 86 grand richer and repay the loans on your brother's Lamborghinis by any chance? Could have done, couldn't he? What do you think is causing the upsets? Is it just that time of year where weird things start to happen?
It's hype. The teams go on a 2-game run against bad teams and they're hyped up as being world beaters, and then they come up against a team that's got a bit about them, another average team at home, and they get beat. It's a mediocre middle of the NFL, I'm afraid. That's all it is. And when you've got star players like Derrick Henry, DeAndre Hopkins in a team, then at any game they're capable of beating anybody. And those two players turned up, and they did a number on the Dolphins, who lost Tyreek Hill in the game for long periods and really didn't have many answers and looked a bit soft again. So,
is the Eagles' result, Dave, the opposite of that, where we hadn't really expected Dallas to turn up against any decent team all season long, and then all of a sudden Well, they did.
I said it, didn't I? I said after having watched the Eagles lose so convincingly to the 49ers, maybe the flat track bullies would find something against them. That's all I think happened. They went into it with a different mental onset. But also, they're pretty much undefeated this season at home. Dak has been flying, and particularly at home. Their away record's a bit shonky. But they've now got the Eagles within their sights, which I didn't think would happen. I might have to rethink my hate a little bit. I can't. I hate the Eagles. But I also hate the Cowboys. It's a weird one, isn't it? But yeah, hopefully, if they end up meeting each other in a wild card round, something disastrous can happen like that.
Did you just get attacked, blindsided by a left tackle?
Some shit like that. I don't know anymore. But yeah, yeah. Hopefully something terrible happens at the Cowboys Eagles games. So yeah, just because I don't like either. I don't want either of them to win a Super Bowl. I don't like either head coach. There's no redeeming features.
Undercooked hot dogs or something?
Oh, I don't know, man. Yeah,
mass food poisoning that isn't life-threatening.
At least with undercooked hot dogs, it's not a vegan meal, right? Which, killing all those ecosystems, all those vegans, murdering the bees. I don't get it, but like we are where we are with the world at the moment. So, yeah. I mean, you keep farming your avocados and killing off entire ecosystems whilst feeling good about yourselves.
I had avocado on toast for breakfast this morning.
Remember when we said we've got loads of games to cover?
I didn't at all. I didn't have breakfast this morning.
Yeah. Oh shoot, we need to crack on, don't we? I forgot about that.
I love this. Look, we're straight down they're not conspiracy theories. They're just theories. All right. That's straight down the Dave theories route.
Scientific fact with the avocados, the tofu, and whatever else we want to throw into the mix, which is generally almonds. That's the one. Yeah. You big bastards.
No, almonds are a massive... Don't get us started. We could go down a very, very deep rabbit hole.
You
wanted to talk about a story that you'd spotted this week, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I watched... I got first-hand viewing of Puka Nakua on Sunday against the Ravens, and some of the catches were brilliant. He played really well. They lost, obviously. Good. And he's on track to break the rookie receiving record. Since the merger, the rookie receiving record held by Jamar Chase of 1,455 yards.
Impressive.
But it isn't the most yards ever by a rookie wide receiver. So I looked into who was the leading rookie wide receiver. And it's a chap called Bill Groman. Bill Groman played for the Houston Oilers in 1960, and he broke the rookie receiving record then. He led all receivers in that age before the merger in the NFL and NFL that season with 1,473. Bill Groman was undrafted. No one drafted him. He came out of college, wasn't drafted, so ended up being a teacher at an 8th grade school. He was playing catch at a school event and was spotted by the husband of one of the teachers, Bob Snyder. Bob Snyder had just retired from the NFL and had been working with a coach called Lou Rimkos, who'd just been appointed head coach of the Houston Oilers in 1959.
Wow.
He told him he should be looking at this Groman, looking at his skills he had in this child's event. So they signed him up. He played 4 seasons in the NFL, set the rookie receiving record, won 4 AFL championships after retiring after 6 years. So hasn't really got the stats, longevity to be in the Hall of Fame. But apparently the shoes are bronzed from his rookie season are in Canton. And Bill Groman passed away, unfortunately, in June 2020 at 83.
Oh, fair play.
Bill Groman,
what a story
ladies and
that
gentlemen.
is, Bill Groman.
Yeah. Bill Groman. What a legend.
So, I've got a question. Mm-hmm. Why then does Jamar Chase hold the rookie receiving record?
Because a lot of the records started since the merger in 1966. So an NFL record stands from 1966. But that's not all records. There was football before that.
Is this like, the records for top flight football in the UK only starting in 1992 when the Premier League started, even though we all know it's a
pretty much
whole heap of rubbish.
Much, yeah. It's like the WWE forgetting all reference to Ultimate Warrior, things like that.
Yeah. Maybe there are certain characters. There is Dave. We're not going there. That's a different podcast that you and I are going to do. It's not this one. We're not doing wrestling on this one.
The other interesting thing is he did it in 14 games.
Expert.
Wow.
They only played 14 games at that point, so 3 games less than these lot are playing now.
Wow, incredible. Right, look, we are going to move on because we've just got a boatload of games to preview, so we're just going to keep motoring through. Yes, look how happy Dave is. He's so happy to be doing so many games.
The first game really pleases me as well.
Yeah, just wait until we get there. The rule is that 3 of us have got a veto during the previews this week, okay? So if at any stage we just don't want to talk about that game, we can hit the veto button and it gets a sentence and we move on.
I can talk about any game.
I know you can. It's whether you want to talk about any game. There's the question. Look, before we move on and do the stock market game, which is coming in just a minute, I thought we would do a little bit from our sponsors, endzonekit.co.uk. They are absolutely brilliant, and here's how you can find out a bit more. Utter Punts is proudly sponsored by one of the best kit suppliers out there, Endzone Kit. Endzone is a transatlantic company whose mission is to make finding kit a little bit easier and a little bit more affordable so you can represent your favourite American sports teams. Whether you're looking for NFL, college football, baseball, hockey or basketball memorabilia, Endzone's got you covered. With sizes from newborn up to 3XL, anyone can find something at endzonekit.co.uk. And one of the things that we love is that they have a whole range of retro and pre-loved gear so you can rock your vintage style while supporting your team. So why not head to endzonekit.co.uk and find yourself a bargain. And because you listen to Utter Punts, you can have a 15% discount at checkout when you use the code PUNTS. endzonekit.co.uk, the place to go for your American sports kit. They are lovely folk as well. Get yourself to endzonekit.co.uk, use the code PUNTS at checkout, you get 15% off. Good stuff. Just in time for Christmas as well. If you're really quick, you get those Christmas presents in for those NFL fans in your family. Should we do the stock market game?
Yeah.
I can tell you, Dave, you are 8 points better off than you were last week. I am 3 points better off than I was last week. Dan is 13 points worse off than he was last week. And it means that Dave has snuck into the lead by a single point. So it currently, top of the table, Dave on 25. Second in the table by a point, Dan on 24, and me languishing at bottom of the table on 8 points. But 3 points better off than I was last week, so it is an improvement. This is the stock market game. We pick 4 teams, 1 team to do worse than they did last season, 3 teams to do better than they did last season. For every place better or worse they finish, depending on whether you pick them to be better or worse, you get yourself a point. And that's how we figured it out based on the standings. This is going to have a bit of a monumental shift in the next few weeks, I think. So we'll keep an eye on these league tables as they go
really
round
will
and
when the
round.
Eagles get kicked out of a wild card round by whoever they're playing, end up being worth minus maybe 8
At the minute they'll be playing at the NFC South winner, so I think they'll be all right.
Jeez, it's a mess that
I think
is.
they probably prefer that than playing at home.
It can still go worse.
Yeah. Look at that face. I'm not sure it can. Interestingly, very top of the regular standings at the moment, one Baltimore Ravens, first time that they've been there so far this season, and now top these standings. So we should keep an eye on that. You got something in your beard there, Dave?
Yeah, mate, just something flew in my mouth. Must have been a fly or a bird of some description. Yeah,
Large black bird.
A large black bird that apparently sounds like a turkey whenever we're doing impression competitions, right?
When we were at Beer Keller.
Ravens and Eagles both sound like turkeys, but let's put them through anyway.
Yeah.
No.
I'm going to put you as the judge next time at the next live show that we have at Beer Keller.
They weren't
in
Eagles.
Manchester.
They weren't Ravens. They were definitely turkeys. Gobble,
again,
gobble,
nobody said that. Literally, nobody. So the stock market is something that we keep an eye on. The other thing that we keep an eye on is the Fantasy Game Day app. Lovely, lovely folks over at fantasygameday.app. If you want to get it downloaded from the Google Play or iTunes stores, you can download it. It is daily fantasy. They've got lists of players, all wonderfully graphics and pictures and all of that licensed stuff, and all of the prices for them are all in pounds rather than dollars, and it's just a really, really good app to use. 100%. We need more players playing it, though. That's the big thing. We want you, as listeners of Utter Punts, to get yourself over to the Fantasy Game Day app, and we want you to use it so much that we're going to give you a free entry if you register using the code PUNTS, P-U-N-T-S. So when you register, deposit some cash, put your first team in, we will then give you another one completely free of charge just for being a listener to Utter Punts. So get yourself over there and do it. Every week, we try our level best to give you a little bit of advice on who we're picking. I say we. These boys try and give you some advice on who they're picking for their team, and that might help you making some decisions when you're putting your fantasy team in. So, Dave, who are you going with this week?
Oh, man. So I've done an incredible job of tipping people for other people, and then due to budgetary constraints, not actually including that person in my own team, I, unlike Liam, do not want any more players. Like, I don't want any more competition. I'm fed up of losing. Because I am losing. I'm losing at a fair amount. But at the same time, it is an awful lot of fun. It keeps me interested in all the games that are going on the TV, on those 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock games. This week, I'm going to go with something a little bit more basic. The Vikings are going to have Nick Mullins throwing. That basically means we're going to be checking it down a lot for Hawkinson. Despite whatever he costs you, he's going to be a good value purchase against that Cincinnati Bengals defence, because it's probably the only way the Vikings are going to be moving the ball, whilst Jake Browning humiliates us by beating his former team that actually gave him his first club. Oh, God, man. Move on.
Okay, Dan.
Who did he pick?
TJ Hawkinson.
Oh, cool. I'd say my advice would be any Rams player, really. Stafford, Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. But Drake London, last week, went for 10 receptions, 172 yards. He led all receivers, so 27 points that. And he's cheap. He's only £3,800. They're playing the Panthers, who are just about garbage. And I think they're worse than garbage, so I don't know if there is worse than garbage. And he's cheaper than Adam Thielen on the other side, who's £4,000. So London's the leading receiver. He'll score points this week against that bad Panthers team, and the Falcons have to win. And unbelievably, they keep trying to throw the ball. So
I don't know what they do. I enjoy it, though. The yardage and the turnovers are an awful lot of fun. Keep it up, guys.
Yeah, I love it. Panthers really are bad as well. They're really, really bad. Yeah. Look, this is obviously a gambling app. You have to be responsible when you are waging money. If you think that you're having a problem, head to begambleaware.org. Don't forget cash prizes if you finish in the top places, and it's well worth a go. And again, begambleaware.org. On to the previews, and Dave's really looking forward to this one. Minnesota Vikings at Cincinnati Bengals is where we're kicking this one off. Saturday the 16th of December at 6:15 p.m. We have got some Saturday games to deal with. First one coming up at Paycor. Two teams with identical records, but no Joshua Dobbs for the Vikings. Dave, do you want to lead us off here?
Oh, am I allowed to veto this one?
If you wish to veto, you can hit your veto button and you can just say a sentence and move on.
I'll tell you what. I'll get a quick rant off my chest. So the Minnesota Vikings managed to take part in the lowest scoring game indoors in NFL history at the weekend. I watched it. It was, quite frankly, a dumpster fire. When Nick Mullins is a man who comes in and helps you move 50 yards downfield, you've got to wonder what the hell was going on with the previous quarterback. And quite frankly, I blame Kevin O'Connell because the play calling was absolutely awful for Joshua Dobbs. You had 2 weeks to come up with a game plan. You failed. Now we've got Nick Mullins coming in, who is essentially a pocket passer, but probably not even fit to tie the cleats of Kirk Cousins, which I never thought I'd end up saying. Jake Browning actually used to play for the Vikings, has come in and done a fairly good job for the Bengals. And quite honestly, whatever happens. We should win. We won't win. It's the Vikings. I hate this. Veto.
You can't veto it now. It's the longest preview of the night.
It's the longest preview I think he's ever done.
I hate it, man.
Oh no, fair. I can understand why.
I think if this was Kirk Cousins versus Joe Burrow, you'd probably tip the Bengals because they're the better
100%.
team. They've got backup quarterback. I think Jake Browning's doing a decent job. I think he'll, a bit like Dobbs did after 2 good games, I think he'll come back to ground once there's some real tape on him. And I think that won't be this week because I think the Vikings are just on a downward spiral. There's a bit of a stink on them. I know they won at the weekend, but it's not going to last long. I think that might be their last win of the season.
We held a team to 0.
Sorry, you said you'd done?
Yeah, we held a team to 0, Dan.
You did. It was the Raiders, though, with Aidan O'Connell, yeah? So let's not be getting too excited.
We'll get into it later, yeah.
So for me, the Bengals are the better team. And I think the Bengals have still got a real good chance of making the AFC playoffs. They had a real good run of results this week with Pittsburgh losing, Houston losing, Indianapolis losing. So that's really opened up for them. So the Bengals for me, especially at home. Yeah,
I'm going Vikings.
Just to make it awkward for me.
Yeah, just
that is a Kaiser Sose pick.
I went second just because now Dave's got to have the deciding vote. That's it. I'm not even apologising. Dave, who are you picking, mate?
Ah, well, let's just make the pod wrong. Vikings! Come on, Vikings! Yeah. You're awesome.
Can't believe I'm here now picking the Bengals at home.
Nah,
I think-
Bengals are going to win.
Yeah. Okay. So he's changed his mind and he's gone with the Bengals.
I think
Yeah,
brilliant
I
that there's
changed
NFL
my
on
mind.
Saturday. I know. Listen,
Yeah,
these
no,
games,
great.
These games aren't great, but it's great that they've got NFL on the Saturday, and it's why this Saturday, because the college football really is finished, so they don't mind putting it because they wouldn't compete against college football. So it's the reason we've got these Saturday games this weekend. They probably look like better games at the start of the season, but
Did
don't
they?
look great now.
Did they
Oh, yeah,
really?
Vikings Bengals was a high seeded match last year.
All right. Let's move on to the second Saturday game, and this one has got rock and roll written all over it, ladies and gentlemen. Pittsburgh Steelers at Indianapolis Colts. This is the smelliest fixture of the season. It's so bad. Dan. Veto.
Yeah, I'd love to veto the bloody team, let alone the game. Still, it's at the Colts, but I don't think the Colts are very good without Jonathan Taylor. I think they're weak without Jonathan Taylor. I think he's their special player. I think Minshew's up and down, and I think the Pittsburgh defense is probably it needs to show up and win a game because it's highly touted, it's highly ranked, but it hasn't won them a game yet. Their offense isn't going to win them a game, but it might score enough points to keep them in it. The Steelers' defense needs to win, and it needs to score points. And I think against the Colts team that's a bit boom or bust with Minshew, I think there'll be a lot of pick sixes. I think TJ Watt's going to have a big game. And for me, the Steelers have to win now to be relevant. They've lost their gap that they had, their flex that they had with the other teams, with losing the last two games against the Cardinals and Patriots, which they had no right to lose. They could have been the number one seed had they won those games.
Kenny Pickett has had a worse season than the Colts' backup quarterback.
Yeah, he's thrown less touchdowns than Tommy DeVito.
I mean,
I don't know if he's playing Pickett. I think Trubisky.
No, I don't know if he is. I was going to ask if Baby Hans was playing.
Yeah, well, and the crowd are cheering for Mason Rudolph. So there's a clear divide there at Pittsburgh. But I think that they'll just do that thing where they stick around long enough, and a win here against the Colts gives them the head-to-head, which just probably seals them in the wild card spot.
Weird that these two have both got winning records. I think this is the first time that we have previewed a Colts game since like week 4. I don't think we've done any preview. I don't think they have played on a TV game in the UK for about 10 or 11 weeks.
Weren't they one of the Germany games, weren't they? They beat the Patriots, didn't they, in Germany? They were the second Germany game.
Okay, so that's
Week
6 or 7 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think we tipped them to beat the Patriots, didn't they? That was the last time we spoke about them. I think the only time this year.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Bloody shit.
Who we picking? Dave, have you got anything you want to add to what Dan said?
No, I mean, I believe that TJ Watt is actually carrying an injury, which isn't good news for, like, my fantasy team, which is all that really matters. But no,
Certainly is out of this game.
Yeah, I mean, like, literally make sure you're getting something in on the game day up, for fantasy game day up, on account of the fact that if you don't, it's probably not that much interest in this game. But at the same time, it is, I mean, there's playoff connotations to it, I guess. I mean, I do love Mike Tomlin, but at the same time, that Steelers team is quite abhorrent on offense right now. There's a definite disconnect between what he wants to try to do on offense and what's being produced. It's been a little bit better, or at least it was before Pickett got injured under the new OC. Can't remember his name, but the last guy definitely deserved getting fired. But at the same time, I can't really pick against the Colts right now because when you look at Minshew, he's potentially better than Pickett, which is bad news for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But when it's Mitchell Trubisky, who I still don't think is particularly good throwing to the left side of the field, and he's been in the league for a while now, I just
or
can't
the right
really
side
see...
of the field. Or the middle of the field.
Or anywhere. He can't throw the ball his ways. No, but he can. He can throw the ball. He can throw it a long way. He just doesn't know when to. It's... I feel for the Steelers right now. I can't really see them getting a win. I'm going to go with the Colts, and I'm going to go with further stock game decline for you, Dan.
Thank you.
I was convinced that there was going to be a tie.
Still might be.
I picked Chargers Raiders, right?
Tonight.
That's tonight. Mm-hmm. I wish I'd picked Vikings Raiders, because that would have been really close to being a tie. That would have been as close as it would have been wrong, but it would have been close. I don't want to pick. I'm struggling to pick. I'm struggling to pick here. So this is the rule that Dan has given me as a new person to the NFL. If you can't decide who's going to win, pick the team with the best unit on the field. Who's got the best unit on the field, Dan?
I think it's Pittsburgh defense. I think.
In which case,
Without Taylor,
I'm going Steelers.
What,
But only because that's what Do you have no idea how difficult that decision was for me, Dave? Don't make me change my mind.
I'm joking.
I just can't do it, man.
Carry on, man. Like, honestly,
okay.
I hope it's a tie, and I hope it's 0-0, just so that like there's a worse game than what the Vikings put on the other day.
Do you know what would be worse than a 3-0 win? A
3-0 loss.
No, a
I think it'd be pretty
two
bad.
touchback tie. That'd be it, wouldn't it?
Oh.
Could you imagine? That was it.
Oh, safeties.
two safety each way, and nothing else happens in the game.
You see, safeties are something that I think are nonsense. Like, if in an ideal world, a safety, which is only worth 2 points, you're essentially stopping the offense behind their own line. It should be worth a touchdown. I've never understood why they bother making it a safety rather than a touchdown. It'd be far more entertaining as well. And I think you deserve like the full 6 points with the potential of the extra point of 2 points if you do stop them behind their own goal line, because it should be something that an offense can get out of. So yeah,
You get the ball back as well, though, don't you? That's the
yeah,
thing.
you do, but I'd just make it a touchdown and then keep the ball back to him. Crack on.
I think we've covered this on Coaching Corner at some stage this season, haven't we? You can go back and listen. I think that was like, have you got a steam train in your room? Is that all I can hear is like the hissing of a steam train? What is going on?
I'm vaping quite heavily on account of the fact that I've still not recovered from Vikings Raiders.
Okay.
Take more than a vape.
Somebody.
I wish.
Yeah, no, I was going to say I'm not going to. Broncos at Lions is the next one. A Lions side that have struggled in the last couple of weeks, fallen down the rankings a little bit. A Broncos side that are probably doing better than I was anticipating. They've won 6 out of their last 7 now. Denver, they're actually going pretty well. And Russell Wilson is actually proving that actually he's not as horrible as he could have been. 2 touchdowns, 224 yards, no interceptions last week. It's not a horrible performance that against the Chargers.
Who could have predicted
Against
the
who?
Broncos doing better this year?
La Chargers.
Against the worst defensive football.
Yeah.
Listen, you're right. Denver have done well. They've surprised me, but they're doing it in a way that's a bit bland, a bit boring. I think when they play a really good, exciting team that can score points, I think they struggle. Denver's game plan is to have long drives, so it's a lot of short passing, a lot of short running, a lot of screen passing, a lot of play action. So they're taking a lot of time off the clock. They're shortening games to make it a 1-score game, and then they're using the experience of the quarterback to try and win these games. And listen, it's a recipe that's done Sean Payton well for the last 10 years, and it will continue to do well. But I think when the Lions have struggled, in contrast, they've struggled against teams that are high powered, that can score quickly on them. So we watched on Thanksgiving, Green Bay went touchdown, and it just put stress on the Detroit, and they're a very inexperienced team. Detroit, they're highly touted, they're talented, but they're inexperienced, a bit like the Packers. So when you sort of punch them a bit, they don't quite know how to react, and they lose their own game plan, which is to run the ball and control the game. I think Chicago have given them 2 really tough games, because Chicago with Fields and Moore can just bomb. They can just go score, and they've got up on the lines quickly and sort of thrown them off game plan. We saw Green Bay do the same thing, but they've only lost to that sort of style of game, and Denver aren't that style of team, which makes me think Detroit at home will probably win the game, because I think they'll outgrind Denver, because they're better at what Denver do than Denver. And I think their running game's better. I think they've got better receivers. And if Jared Goff isn't pressured too much, and the Broncos defense isn't a pressure defense, it's a coverage defense, then I think Detroit will have too much. But I think this will be this point line on this is really high. I think it's nearly 48 points, and it's a bang the under game for me. It's sort of 17-14 or something like that.
I was just I'm going to let Dave have his say on this game in a sec, but I was just looking back, and of course the Lions lost to the Bears last week, and it made me wonder who would win in a fight, a lion or a bear.
There's actually a scientific answer to this.
Is there?
Yeah, it's based on the actual the density of their bones. And a lion's skull is far too fragile to cope with a strike from a bear, whilst a bear can actually absorb any strikes from a lion.
Are we going polar or brown grizzly? What type of bear?
It doesn't matter. So as soon as it's a lion versus a bear,
if it's a polar bear
lion.
If it's a polar bear in Africa, I think we might be struggling a bit.
No. I think that the only bear that might struggle is a monocle bear, which is a joke from an entirely
Spectacle
different
bear,
thing.
Some bear.
No, I mean, but even then, the bone density is meant to be enough to cope with a lion. What's interesting is it becomes a bit more even when you throw a tiger.
Bridgewater. Oh, bear.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, a teddy bear would probably lose. I'll give you that, though.
Cool.
It's important to know the detail.
I'm going Lions.
Good.
Dave?
Despite the science.
Yeah, in spite of the science, yeah.
Oh my God, you're going against science, Liv. Right, okay. So for me, the key thing about the success of the Broncos recently, and I think this is the thing which has been holding them in good stead, is just how damn nasty they are on the field. The amount of fines that they've picked up, the amount of suspensions that they're picking up, they let teams know that they're in a game and they let them know early. I think for the very reason that you were talking about with the Lions, which is their inexperience, I think it might be a little bit of a culture shock for them. And for that reason, I'm actually going to go with the Broncos. It's not biased towards the stock market game. It is just literally, I think that the Broncos are going to try and overpower them. Is that your best team?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's going to be bad for you, isn't it? When they don't even make playoffs.
It's still top of the NFC North, which is a garbage division, but there you go. That was the reason for the pick.
Okay.
The other team in there is rubbish.
You've picked the Lions as well, haven't you?
I have.
Look, final one for this section of the previews is the Cowboys at the Bills. This one's got interesting times. Sunday the 17th, 9:25 at Highmark. So I'm quite looking forward to this one. Find it difficult to call. 10-3 Cowboys against the 7-6 Bills, but the Bills, looked all right again, didn't they? Came back, played pretty well last weekend.
We did tell you they'd win.
You did.
All of us did. Unanimous decision on the Punts podcast that Bills would win on the road in Kansas.
I like that. It was brave, it was ballsy, and it was correct. It was class. Yeah.
Thanks to Kadarius Tony's foot.
Mate, you mean Cornelius Tony? We finally saw him on the field, right?
I mentioned him.
Cornelius.
Told you how they were going to win the game because he was rubbish. And there you go.
His toe has obviously caused his knee an issue. Yeah, right. Who's going first? Dave, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, why not? Much as I do respect what the Bills have been doing, the Cowboys, at the moment, they are functioning at a high level. It's an interesting one because last year the Cowboys have the offensive coordinator who's currently at the Chargers. What's he called? The former quarterback. Can you remember his name off the top of your head, Dan? It's not Keenan McCardle. That's the wide receivers coach of the Vikings. Keenan Moore. Something more.
Kellen Moore.
Kellen Moore. There we go. Okay. So Kellen Moore was at the was actually the offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. Didn't get renewed last year. Ended up going to the Chargers. The Chargers appear to have stalled massively. I never thought I'd give McCarthy any praise whatsoever, but the offense is performing an awful lot better this year than it did last year. I think as you brought up the stat last week, they're the only team that have outscored the Dolphins, and they've continued to outscore the Dolphins. Liam, for me, the Cowboys have hit a bit of form. I want the Bills to win because it keeps that division interesting, but I do think they're up against it massively at the moment, just with the confidence that Dak is playing with, and of course the fact that he's now spokesman for Big Pharma. So, going to get all the decisions, aren't they? Cowboys.
I'm still struggling to believe in the Cowboys, and I think this will be a show me game for me. I kind of expected them to do well at home against the Eagles. It was a match. If they were ever going to beat the Eagles, last week was it. They were in flying form. They're scoring 40 points a week at home. They were playing at home again against the team they needed to win. It all set up for them. I still don't think they'll win the division. I think the Eagles will because their run now, Dallas, I think they play Buffalo, Miami, Kansas, and then somebody else. So they're now going into their run that Philadelphia just had. This is what happens when you're in the same division. You play the same teams eventually. So their run, and whilst the Eagles are playing the Giants twice, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks. So I think it'll turn back round again. But for me, I was really impressed with the Bills. I've been really impressed with the Bills the last few weeks. I was impressed with them against the Eagles when the Eagles were playing really well and healthy. The Bills should have beat them in Philadelphia. Yeah, they went and beat Kansas City in Kansas City, and I know Kansas City should have won the game because decisions blah 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 blah. They didn't win the game. Buffalo did, and they deserved a bit of luck. They've had a bit of bad luck. Remember the start of the season, they lost to a punt return in New York when Rodgers went down. I mean, they've had some bad luck this year, Buffalo. I think the Buffalo Bills are the best team in the AFC. I think
on their day.
From right now, they're the team no one wants to play. I think they'll win the AFC, and I think they'll scrape in because I think the Dolphins will wobble. The Bills get the Dolphins again. They've already battered them once. They're only one game behind, I think, if they win this. So I think they've got an easier run now. So I think the Bills are the best team in the AFC, and I think they'll win the AFC. And I think they'll start by really battering the Cowboys here at home and roughing them up because the Cowboys don't travel. The Bills are a good team at home. So if Dallas go there and win, I'm in. I believe you, but they won't.
Here's a couple of stats to back up what Dan's just said. Bookies have got the Cowboys as 1.5 underdogs against the Bills, despite that 5-game winning streak and being the number 1 seed in the NFC. They very equal in terms of how many yards they make per play. The Bills getting better, and the final one is all 3 of the Cowboys' losses this season have come on the road, and they are
against good teams.
Yeah. So
other than the Cardinals, though.
Interesting. Right, you're going with
Buffalo for me. Go Bills.
I'm going to go Buffalo as well. Dave?
Well, I'm going against you both, but I also want us to make sure that we do get Dan claiming that the Bills are the best team in the AFC right now as part of our social shorts, because I'm pretty sure you meant to add in the actual division name there. Otherwise, they're better than the Ravens, mate. Do you think?
I think they are at the minute. Yeah, I think they are at the minute. I think if the Ravens played the
you
Bills,
think
even in Baltimore, the
Bills are
Bills
the
would win.
best team in the AFC right now?
Yeah, I think they're the
Okay.
second best team in football.
And you're putting the Niners ahead of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Clip those up for social media.
Balls out, mate. Fair play. Do it.
That's such an Australian phrase, isn't it?
Balls out.
Balls out.
Balls out, mate.
Right.
Balls out.
Yeah. Look, right, okay, we will get on to previewing some more games. There's so many to get through. First, I wanted to tell you about one of our headline sponsors here at Utter Punts, and that is Beer Keller in Manchester. What a brilliant place it is to go and watch the NFL on a Sunday night. Get down there, wings, like-minded people, beer, big screen TVs, and just a really good atmosphere. We've got potentially another couple of live shows coming up from Beer Keller before the end of the season as well. We're looking at Championship weekend, and then potentially something around one of the biggest games of sporting events in the world ever. So we will let you know exactly when we've got something down for definite on either of those. But look, get yourself down to Beer Keller. Loads of venues across the UK. Absolutely brilliant to be a part of it. Thank you very much indeed to them. Do we want to do Coaching Corner this week, or shall we skip it and get back onto the previews?
No, I think let's do it. I think it's a good conversation.
Tanking is what we're talking about in Coaching Corner this week, and it's something I think that the fans get quite het up about. Fans would look at, a poor start to the season and go, do you know what, I think we should just tank it from here. I'm not sure the same thing applies if you're a head coach or a player. Both Dave and I are guilty of maybe suggesting that our teams should tank this season. But again, I'm not quite sure that that's how it works when you've got a bit of professional pride on the line.
I agree. For me, tanking is a made-up fan thing. It's what fans believe their team should do, and it's a way of them cheering on their team losing because everyone wants an interest in the game. So they'd rather have the team lose because, we're getting a good pick. Listen, first of all, there's no guarantee the pick you're going to get works out. Number 1 seeds that have gone, if you're looking for a franchise quarterback, Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance. I mean, you can go on about these number 1, these high draft picks, Kenny Pickett. It doesn't always work out. So I think the owners maybe sometimes would think, well, this could work out well. For me, it's very rare that the same head coach is in charge of a team that would get the number 1 pick would still be in his job. So it's unlikely he's wanting to tank. Look at the Texans last year with Lovie Smith. They won to cost themselves the number 1 overall pick. And the players, the players, if you ever you talk to these players, you watch these players, you listen to them, there's no way they go out there to lose. They're risking their livelihood. We spoke about Hayden Hurst last week. They get hit, 1 bad tackle, they're out for the year, they're out for the season, their career could end and that's them done. They ain't playing at 90%, trust me. So no, it doesn't exist. An organisation can try and tank. So look at the Cardinals this year, swapping quarterbacks out, bringing Josh Dobbs in a week to go. They can try and do it, what the Commanders have done with sort of trading away their best talent. They can try and do it, but the guys you bring in instead of them are going to try as hard as they possibly can and play as well as they possibly can because they're playing for their contracts. Tanking doesn't exist in the professional game. It's a fan thing.
I disagree.
Unless you're the Miami Dolphins in 2019, Dave.
No, I disagree. I think it's a back office thing. At least it should be. I think if you're the GM of a team, then you should be looking to make sure that you are giving them the widest possible window to win a Super Bowl, right? The issue that you get is a culture versus a strategic thinking piece. For the most part, Dan's exactly right. Within a football team, within an NFL football team, everybody wants to win. From the coaching staff down all the way down to the kit men, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to win. The GM, though, has to be able to remove themselves from the emotion of it. They need to be able to look at things logically. They need to be able to assess where their squad is at accurately, and they need to be able to respond accordingly. So for me, whilst I fully understand the fact that for the most part it's going to be very, very unpopular with fan groups, right? Because everybody wants to actually be paying for a ticket for a team which is competitive in a game. The GM needs to be able to go, right, okay, this is where my team is at. This is where we're going to finish this season. And according to that, and I want to take any doubt out of this, I want to be able to manoeuvre so that I can ensure that we are achieving the best possible result next year in the draft. And I think if you don't look at it that way, then you end up in a situation where you are basically in limbo as a franchise. And from my perspective as a Vikings fan, we have been in limbo for many, many decades. Like the number of top quality wide receivers we've got. We went through the list, didn't we, a couple of weeks back, where we were naming the highest touchdown scorers in NFL history. Mm-hmm. 2 of those were Vikings. That's why I knew them. Right? Name a Vikings quarterback. At no point in our history have we taken a number 1 quarterback. At no point in our history have we actually taken a quarterback in the top 5, right? In fact, it might even be worse than that. It might be we haven't taken a quarterback in the top 10. I'm not too sure. But I am a very passionate follower of a franchise that doesn't understand occasionally you do need to cut bait. We consistently are in a position where we are looking to basically maximise each season as it comes. I don't think that's a smart strategically. I just don't. I'm a business analyst. That's what I do for a living. As far as I'm concerned, the best commodity that an NFL team can achieve is draft commodity. I want draft picks. I want to be able to take shots in the lottery that is the draft. Dan's right. A lot of these number 1 overall picks don't turn out. But then Joe Burrow, Andrew Luck, like... Okay, Luck ended up playing at the Colts and they ruined him by not putting in a team around him. But for me, the biggest mistake you can make is by going, right, we have a winning culture here before you're ready for it. Like, the Ravens are ready for it, but why are you ready for it? You took a quarterback with the last pick of the first round, your old GM's last ever pick, right? He was a player that was ignored, despite the fact that on the consensus board for that draft, he was a top 5 pick. He was ignored because he didn't have an agent. You guys took advantage and you got yourselves Lamar Jackson. That's great, but that shouldn't happen in the NFL. Teams should be much more aware of the value of the quarterbacks that are coming through in the draft. They should be looking to sell their draft commodities accordingly. And I think that if you can get yourself in a place where you are basically owning other teams' draft picks, and you do that by selling your own assets, that's much better than hoping that you yourself can tank. Like the situation that the Bears have got themselves in, where they allowed the Panthers to take the number 1 overall pick last year for what was basically a king's ransom. The Bears now are in a position where they're going to be the holder of the number 1 overall pick next year. That allows them to choose what they want to do with Justin Fields. They can either trade back again and look to put in weapons around him, or they're going to be in a position where they can take Caleb Williams. Now, Caleb Williams, for those who don't know, is the most highly touted prospect since Andrew Luck came out in the draft. He's regarded as a better player than Trevor Lawrence was, who went number 1 overall. He's regarded as better than Joe Burrow. He's basically considered to be the next big thing. Teams will want that. There are other quarterbacks in this draft as well who can go a long way to making you a more efficient team. Drake May is another QB who's just announced that he's going to be coming out in this draft. He's fantastic. You've got Primetime's son who might come out. Personally, I hope he spends another year at Colorado to round himself out. But the timing of a tank, and a tank should only be an applicable thing where you have those generational talents coming through at quarterback. Because otherwise, you don't know what you're getting. But this year, and that's why I wanted the Vikings to tank, this year there's Caleb Williams, there's Drake May, there's other QBs who are going to be coming into this draft who are high-level prospects. That's why this year it made sense. For me, it would have made an awful lot of sense when the Vikings were 1-4 and just lost Justin Jefferson. I wanted us to trade Kirk Cousins. As it was, he got an Achilles injury. Right, out for the season, right? Okay, great. But we could have cashed in on him before that happened. We would have been in a better position for next year. What are the Vikings going to do this year? If we limp into the playoffs, brilliant. It helps me out in the stock market game against Dan. But I have no belief whatsoever that we're a challenger for this year's Super Bowl. The only way you can achieve that is by underperforming. Now, whether that's through having the wrong coaches in charge, which I don't think the Vikings do have, but overall, the tactic of tanking should be something which is viable for a GM who doesn't give a crap about emotion, and GMs shouldn't give a crap about emotion. So for me, tanking is a viable thing to do.
Do you know, my challenge against that, Dave, and I think a lot of what you're saying is right. My only point just to counter is that the GM that wants to do the tank is very rarely going to keep his job if they do that badly.
No, the Browns guy, was it Sashi Brown?
Sashi Brown.
Yeah, so I think he's a really clever guy, and he accumulated an awful lot of draft capital by tanking the Browns. But he wasn't actually allowed to spend it. He got ousted and replaced
exactly,
by
and that's kind of my point. So what was in it for him? My other point is, you're saying to be a successful team, you've got to tank and get that. The Patriots never tanked. The Ravens don't tank. The Steelers don't tank. These teams,
but
the Eagles haven't tanked.
Lucked out.
The 49ers haven't tanked. All these good teams, the Cowboys haven't tanked. All these teams that are perennial playoff teams in the last 25 years, none of them have had a top 5 pick.
So you're wrong.
Very rarely have a top 5 pick.
San Francisco sold out to go and get Trey Lance.
They traded up for it, but they didn't tank to get it.
They were wrong. They basically put in place an awful lot of draft commodity for the next few years in order to go and get him, and they got incredibly lucky that they got Brock Purdy. So if you can guarantee with the very last pick of a draft you could get a quarterback as a viable starter, great, don't tank. The Vikings have never had a quarterback outside of Frank Tarkenton, who I would argue would have been one of the top 3 or 4 in the league at the time. As a result of having Frank Tarkenton, they got to 4 Super Bowls. Don't tell me tanking's a bad idea when the only way you're going to be able to leverage the draft capital to get a quarterback who's a viable option in the NFL is by tanking. Like, I fully appreciate where you could, and you will. Like,
who are the best quarterbacks? Who are the best quarterbacks in the NFL? Who are the best quarterbacks in the NFL?
Joe Burrow,
Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, maybe okay, but
Joe
top
Burrow
5
is the best quarterback.
Lamar
in the NFL.
Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. Where was he drafted? Where was Tom
Number
Brady
10?
drafted? Where was Brock Purdy drafted? Where was Jalen Hurts drafted?
Mahomes was drafted number 10. The downside on Mahomes coming out in the draft was they didn't think that he'd be able to run an NFL offense because of the fact that he liked to hold on to the ball too long. Now, he's an exceptional athlete and was able to overcome that. But there's a reason why he wasn't taken at number 1 overall. They didn't think it would transfer. The skill set would transfer. So
they were bang on, weren't they?
No, very wrong apart from Andy Reid, right? But
Did the Patriots tank to get Brady? Did they?
No, but you can't tell me that it's viable to pick quarterbacks in the
What I
later
can
rounds.
tell you is no team that's ever tanked has won a Super Bowl. The teams that win these games don't tank. They're perennially good performers, and they're well managed teams. They're well managed organisations.
I think each case is its own case. Each draft is its own draft.
Which tanking teams ever won the Super Bowl? Give me one.
Okay, I can only really provide you with the details of one team who I know took 3 number 1 overall picks, who basically, had they not swapped out on their quarterback, were probably in a better place today. And that's the Browns. Like, the Browns got Myles Garrett. The Browns got Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was shipped out of the Browns after an injury-ridden season. Like, because he wasn't the guy who was picked by the coaching staff who were in place. For me, it's a debate which can go round and round and round, but it all depends upon the case of your franchise. And whilst you're saying it's only a fan-only thing, it's not a fan-only thing. There are very, very clever GMs who have gone down the route of looking to get that draft capital in place. One of them works for your organisation now, right? And it's literally one of those where it's a different philosophy, but if you were able to get yourself to a point where you were owning each draft, then you could pick whoever you wanted from that draft. But it's very rare that a team goes full tank, and it's the lack of commitment to that which I think leads them to a point where they don't end up winning the Super Bowl. That's just my opinion, and it's just based on the fact that as a Vikings fan, I really am fed up of the middle ground. I don't want Kirk Cousins as my QB. I don't want a 5th round pick who we end up paying a massive amount of salary for, a top 3 salary in the NFL, for a guy who does choke under pressure. Like, if you want a top quarterback, then you've got to do the things which will get you there to get that quarterback. If it's not tanking, that's great, but it is selling your assets. And the Vikings aren't willing to do either. So for me, as a Vikings fan, I wanted an accidental tank so badly this year. But Brian Flores has done an outstanding job with that defence. It's the top 5 defence in every category.
So it's a fan thing.
Maybe. But if I was GMing in it, I'd do it as well. And I'd go wholehearted for it, mate. I would literally sell out everything that I could.
As a fan, of course you would.
I'm calling time out on this discussion. I'm still not quite sure we're going to fit all of it into this episode of the podcast. We might have to do like a tanking special where we just take this week's coaching corner out and it's just you two having a conversation. In the meantime, here's a stab and everybody can have a breather. Proper discussion on utter punts. I think good enough that we might even just turn that into standalone, given that we've got so much else to talk about. And we don't want to make these episodes too much longer than an hour. Let's move on to the second part of the preview, shall we? We gave Dave first dibs on the Vikings game. You get first dibs on the Ravens game at Jacksonville. Jacksonville with some fairly hefty off-the-field issues they're dealing with at the minute, as well as some fairly hefty on-the-field ones too. Dan, what do you make of this one?
It was a game I was worried about a couple of weeks ago. The Jags looked like they were playing well. This was in Jacksonville, late night game. The Ravens had got off the bye. And it's one of the games. Obviously, Jacksonville I think they're the 3 seed at the minute in the AFC. Ravens are the 1 seed. So getting the head-to-head here is massive. It gives them a game and a half. I think the Ravens come into it after a tough win, but a win all the same. And I think winning those games is good for a team. Looking at the way that game finished, and the whole team chasing Tyron Wallace up the sideline when he returned that punt was incredible. The crowd response was incredible, and I think that gives the team a lift, even though it went to overtime. Jags look a bit stinky. They look like they've got a bit of a stink on them. Lawrence not moving that well, although played okay, but didn't look like Trevor Lawrence. And I think they've missed Christian Kirk got injured. In the same game that Lawrence got injured, all the news was on Lawrence, but actually Kirk got injured in the same game. And I think their right tackle got injured in the same game, which don't get the headlines because it's not the quarterback, but they made a big difference last week. And I think the Ravens come into it in better form, although they have lost Kyle Hamilton. He's week by week now, and he's a massive part of that defense. It's a defense that confuses. I think the Ravens have got the edge because I think if Trevor Lawrence is going to try and be a pocket passer, he's coming up against a really conflicting and a really confusing Ravens defense, which can do all sorts of things to him. So I think the Ravens have the edge, and I think they've just got to make sure they get the points on the board. And I think if they do that, they can put the Jags away here. That's my view.
Dave?
Hate Ravens. I'm joking. It's a tough game, but the Jags did not start well in their last game. They kind of rallied a little bit, but at the same time, it was kind of already over. I think Trevor Lawrence is now carrying an injury. If the Jags were going up against anyone who weren't as good as the Ravens, who I think are the best team in the AFC, then I would probably fancy them more. But right now, I'm expecting them to get broken down over a period of time. Possibly keep the game close for the first half, but I do expect the Ravens to basically come out on top. I just feel for the Jags fans at the moment on account of the fact that I think they got their hopes up and that whole division seems to be getting a little bit closer. And as I said before the season started, the Titans are probably going to win it.
I think they're the only team that can, aren't they?
Yeah.
Cool. Right, who's everybody picking? I'll go Ravens.
It's not the point,
going.
Yeah, Ravens for me. Yeah.
Dave's
Ravens.
going. Right,
Ravens
cool.
all day.
It's a clean sweep. Eagles at Seahawks is the next one at Lumen Field. This is Monday Night Football. Losing record Seahawks, very winning record Philadelphia Eagles, but coming off the back of a loss. In fact, coming off back-to-back losses. 49ers and the Cowboys, they've lost to now. Dave, do you want to go first?
Yeah, the Eagles are broken. Their offensive coordinator and their DC are terrible, and it's only going to get worse. The Eagles are going to lose.
I love that. Single sentence, bosh, done.
Yeah, Eagles off the back of 2 losses, Seahawks on the back of 4 losses. So, not exactly a game of form. This game
They've looked awful.
Your TV guy, yeah, they've looked terrible. Your TV guide will probably say Chiefs at Patriots. It's been flexed out for this game. Chiefs and Patriots moved to Sunday, just so I don't get confused. But bird off, the bigger bird is the eagle, I think. So Eagles.
No, I think a Seahawk's bigger than an eagle.
Not a baby Seahawk. And these are young. Pete Carroll in
What about
14 years.
seagull?
A seagull.
A sea eagle.
Well,
Bigger again.
Exactly.
Like
Massive.
a combination of
Massive
okay.
thing.
Yeah.
Isn't that Seahawk?
I think that's yes. They are the same thing.
Okay. So Seahawks bigger than Eagles.
It's the first time in 14 years Pete Carroll's lost 4 games on the bounce. So there's a bit of a stink on the Seahawks. If the Seahawks had Geno Smith and their wide receivers were playing well, their passing game was playing well, I would think they could exploit the weakness of the Eagles, which is their secondary. We have said that a number of times. I know it's getting a bit boring, but it is important to say in this game. I don't think Drew Lock has got the capability to hurt them as much as the other teams have, and I think that Philadelphia pass rush...
Has it been confirmed that Geno's not playing? Because he was questionable,
It's
wasn't he?
50-50, but the line is badly, and their O-line is bad, and I think Jalen Carter, and I think these Fletcher Cox, and I think Hassan Riddick, I think will just tear up the Seahawks here.
So
and
just rest him, give him an opportunity to get healthy.
Yeah, and I think it's time the Seahawks... I think Philly will really want to sort of straighten themselves up. They're now entering their real cushy part of their schedule to get that the number 1 seed, and I think it starts here with a win on the road. For me, I think it's the Eagles. I think they're still a very, very good team.
Good stuff. Have you both had your say on this one?
Yeah, I don't want to say anymore because I do agree with Dan, but
You don't want to tell him that you agree with him. Yeah.
no, not close. Not
Eagles
Dan.
or Seahawks?
The Eagles fans.
Dan, Eagles or Seahawks?
Eagles.
Dave, Eagles or Seahawks?
Veto.
Veto. You've got to choose. You can't veto your choice. Which one are you picking?
Eagles.
He's picking Eagles. He just didn't want to say it.
Yeah. No,
it's a
I
clean
really
sweep of
didn't.
Eagles. Clean sweep of Eagles. Last game before we get on to bets and your utter punts of the week.
I call the Eagles Dave's bird team,
Dave's bird team.
just so you know.
Just so it annoys him. Okay.
He doesn't know. Everyone just told him now.
New
It's fine.
Orleans Saints at the La Rams.
Listen, the Rams are good.
Yeah.
The Saints aren't.
Yeah. Both have
really-
identical records.
They have, but really impressed with the way the Rams played against the Ravens on Sunday, and they'd won 3 straight going into that, and they were unlucky not to win it. They had enough chances to win it. The Rams are a playoff team, I think, and I'd much prefer to see them in the playoffs than the Seahawks. I'd probably prefer to see them in the playoffs. Sorry, rather than the Vikings. I think they're a better team, and I'd certainly rather see them in the playoffs rather than the Saints.
Is Puka Nacua the coolest name in the NFL at the moment?
It's
No,
getting
that's still Tua when you say his full name.
What, Tua Tagovailoa or the full?
Tua Tyreek Hill.
Tua Niga Manapola Tua Vailoa, I think is what it is, and for me that's still the coolest name because of what
He's
it
just
means
called
with-
Dave when Tyreek Hill's not playing.
Yeah, the name means something along the lines of beautiful evening songbird.
Yeah.
That's about right.
Absolutely love that.
about
It's Tuaniga Manu Lapola Donny Tagovailoa.
Yeah,
Donny is his middle name, and
I
think
love that
might make
Donny's
him
his
the
Named after
middle
the
name.
Osmond, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, oh really?
Mum was a big
famous
fan of the Osmonds.
Tua Osmond.
Yeah. Mum was a big fan of the Osmonds.
Not the Godfather, no. It's definitely the Osmonds. Okay.
Definitely Osmonds, yeah.
That-
And New Kids on the Block.
So silly.
Get out of that.
So silly. Puka Nacua in 2023, 1,113 yards, 82 receptions, and 4 touchdowns in his rookie season. Not bad going. We've already spoken about him. But you've also got other strengths in there, haven't you? The likes of Cooper Kupp, who is probably still the best route runner in the NFL.
He's up there with Devontae Adams, definitely. And he's starting to look healthy. He played well against the Ravens on Sunday. Kyron Williams, the running back, is really good. They're really good, and they're really running the ball. And their defense on the secondary, there's no names in there, but they played really well. The Rams are a good young team, and I think they're a team you'd want to root for, really, in this.
Dave, what have you got to say on this one?
Probably still think that Stefan Diggs is the best route runner in the NFL, if I'm honest. But they're both physical specimens beyond him. But yeah,
That's
I
probably
mean,
fair.
yeah. But for me, I want the Rams to win because I kind of agree with Dan. I'd like to see them in the playoffs. I think they're good enough to be there. I think they're inconsistent, but their ceiling games show an awful lot of potential.
Can I ask a couple of quick questions before we go any further? Considering we're a UK-based NFL podcast made for fans of the NFL in the UK, should we be saying defense or defense?
It's defense. It's
In which case, should we be saying route or route?
route.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I
Route
can.
runner.
Meet.
Yeah.
Something else in it.
Route runner.
I just don't. It feels weird doing it or not doing
Listen,
it.
we've got the privilege of talking about America's game, and I think we have to use the American terms to do so.
All right, fair enough. Who are you picking? Saints or Rams?
Rams.
Dave?
Nah.
Rams, but it's a bastardised language and we shouldn't use it.
Was that your Rams impression?
Yeah,
it was really
You're damn
good.
right it was.
I'm
Well,
going
that's
to pick.
really good, mate.
I'm going to pick the Rams. Very impressed. Right, bets quickly. We've got to get through this. We're like an hour and 20 minutes into this recording. That's about ridiculous. Who you pick for your bet, Dan?
I've got the Bengals versus the Vikings straight win. I've got the Lions and Broncos under 51.5 points. I've got the Rams to beat Washington, and I've got Buffalo and Dallas over 47.5 points. He's just over 4-1 again.
Nice. I went to Dan first, so Dave could scramble for his phone and pull up his bet, and I made a really good shout. So, Dave, have you managed to do that now?
Yeah, man. It's all good. I'm going through a little bit of a double. There weren't any player lines available, which annoyed me. But basically, the Broncos are 2-1 dogs against the Lions. I don't see them being a 2-1 dog. And the Bears are a 29-20 underdog against at the Browns, who are playing Joe Flacco. Which, okay, great. Joe Flacco's actually looked quite good, which is great from my perspective, not from Dan's, who after.
I love Joe Flacco, man.
Yeah, but
it's some good times.
Yeah, but like it's literally one of those where I just feel like the odds on both of those two teams in what I think are actually 50-50 matchups are favouring. So if you take that double, you end up getting 6.35 to 1 even. Which I think is pretty good value, bearing in mind I can see both teams actually coming away with a victory. Even though I do love the Browns. Like I've got a soft spot for them just simply because I think Myles Garrett is not quite as good as your mate Nick Bosa.
It's all love, baby.
Yeah.
Right, let's call it right there, shall we? Time for our Rotter Punts of the week. I am choosing Ben Roethlisberger. Big Ben.
You win.
Yeah.
Well done. End of show.
He's decided to go out on his podcast, which is called the most ridiculous thing in the world. It's called Footballing with Ben Roethlisberger, said in the most Pittsburgh way that you possibly can. He's decided to have a right old pop at the Steelers and Mike Tomlin, saying maybe the tradition is done. Do you know what, Ben? Get yourself in the bin. This was your job for a long time. It is not your job anymore. You're not helping. You're not being constructive. All you're doing is adding extra pressure onto a franchise that is not having a good time at the moment. And as much as he dislikes them, and he's quite pleased to see them struggling, it's still not a great look from you, Ben Roethlisberger. Utter punt of the week. Dan.
There are many reasons Ben Roethlisberger should be utter punt of every week, but we won't go there because it's a normal podcast.
Yeah. Get in trouble.
Kadarius Toney for me. Listen, we talked about him, Cornelius, his brother, last week. We said he needed to play well. We said he'd cost them games early in the season. And you can shout at the refs all you want, and you can say they shouldn't have called this, and they shouldn't have called that, and they shouldn't have called the other. What they called was you were stood a yard offside, and if you can't see and look along the line as a professional footballer and realise you're stood in the wrong place, then I'm sorry, that's on you. Mm-hmm. Bye.
Yeah,
Dave?
I've seen it before, Dan, where wide receivers have actually checked with the line judge. The line judge has said they're okay, and then they've still flagged them offside straight after. But he didn't even look at the line judge, and that is a basic thing to do. And it was a hell of a play.
A tremendous play.
Amazing play. Like,
it wasn't the ref that spoiled it.
What a pass from Kelsey.
Yeah, brilliant.
I get where you're coming from. The other punt of the week for me is Antonio Pierce, the head coach of the Raiders, who I've been given some praise due to the fact that I did feel like they were getting a new coach bounce. What I saw of the weekend was, do you remember Phil Brown at Hull in UK football?
Where he sat him down in the centre circle and told him off at Manchester City.
So he gathered, Antonio Pierce at one point gathered the entire team around him to give him a rallying cry on the halfway line. And I saw Max Crosby looking confused. And then he sent them out 8 minutes before the end of half time, without any coaches, just to go and get ready for the second half. That's how you end up scoring 0 points and losing to a team 3-0 who are frankly playing clueless. Antonio Pierce, it was all on you because you made it all about your ego rather than doing the things that your team needed you to do. And you've also sacked the DC, you know, talking about potentially changes on the OC side of the fence. Okay, great, but you're halfway through a season. You're meant to be trying to help the Raiders finish as high as they can, and you yourself are handicapping them because of your ego. Antonio Pierce, you've got a punt of the week. You should have won that game.
No, he's not. Ben Roethlisberger. Liam wins.
Right, beautiful stuff. Gentlemen, we'll see you next week, yeah?
Thank you.
This has been Utter Punts. We will see you next week.